Hello and welcome to my channel where we talk about tips and tricks for teaching elementary music. All right, here's today's video. So today I thought we would talk about how to create rhythm and melody ostinato patterns for your students to play on classroom instruments. As stated in a previous video, I am avoiding using any copyrighted songs in my videos, so I wrote a song for this. Let's just listen to it first, and then we'll talk about how to create those ostinatos. Okay, so let's look at the form of this song really quickly. So we have our A section. The B section starts here. This is just a little one measure interlude I threw in really quick. The B section starts here at this measure. And another one measure interlude. And then back into the A section again with a little one measure coda. Okay, so let's talk about creating a rhythm ostinato pattern. To making rhythm ostinatos, I listen to the music and see if there's a pattern that I can pull out maybe from the music itself, or is there a pattern that jumps out at me that would go well with the music. When it comes to melody patterns, I have to look at the notated music in order to pitch the accompaniment correctly. So let's just look at some choices here. So the A section that you see right here in front of you, you can see that I have the tambourines going to, rest, rest, right? And then the sticks are going ta, rest. So you could, and I have done this a couple different ways, where I've had the tambourine play that entire A section, to, ta, right? To, ta. You absolutely could have the tambourine play that whole thing, or you could do the back and forth like you see there, where the tambourine and then the sticks. I will use two instruments on the same rhythm pattern in the same section for second grade and higher. That way they get that sense of having to listen to each other and knowing when they have to come in and when they have to wait for the other instrument to play. If this was a kindergarten or first grade class, I would have one of those instruments play that entire pattern. So let's look at the B section. Same idea. Right? Or you could make this all sticks. So I also wanted to show you another option, which is body percussion. Last year when we were in hybrid teaching, where I had students that were on Zoom with me and students that were in the classroom with me at the same time, I switched to body percussion instead of playing found sounds or instruments at their house, because I wanted to make sure that everybody could do the same thing. And I didn't want to hand out a bunch of instruments to my roomies that were in the room with me and have my Zoomies feel left out. So I switched to a body percussion format. So let me just give you a little taste of that. So we're going to see that A section one again, but this time they're going to say toe, stomp, stomp, right? So they get some body percussion in there. Or the B section, and I didn't shrink this down to put them both on the same page, but I think you'll get the idea. So the first part of the B section would be, and then, so they get a chance to hear the different sounds on the body percussion. Okay, so I'm going to show you a melodic accompaniment that I created for this. Let me open that up. And I wrote this melodic accompaniment for the xylophone, but you could use boom whackers, handbells, if you have little mini keyboards that you're using. You could use any of those. You could use individual bells. You could use full resonator bells, the full set. I would probably teach this particular song to 2nd or 3rd grade on a full resonator bell set. So let's just hear what this sounds like with the xylophone accompaniment. So all I did to create this pattern for a melody instrument was I just looked at what was going on in the melody of the song itself. So if you look right here, all I did was I just put G, a rest, D, and a rest. Then the same thing again, G, and D. So that's all I did there. So that's very easy for the students to go G, D, G, D, C. So I basically looked at the bottom and I just looked for what were the notes on 1 and 3. Now I did change this to a G instead of a D, just so that it could be a repeated pattern. Makes it easier for the students to know where they're going. And then over here, G, A, G, E, G, D. This pattern right here is more difficult than this pattern. So in order to make this a little bit easier for the students, I want this part right here to look exactly like this part. So I'm going to go ahead and move this D up to the G. So now it'll be something familiar. G, D, G, D, C, and they've got it here again. G, D, G, D, C. And this is the only thing that's different. So it does offer a challenge, but it's doable. So that's the A section. So then you come down to the other A section, and let me make sure that I change that as well. Put a G there. So you could feasibly have them play the same instrument the whole way through, the xylophone, whether you want them to do resonator bells, boom whackers, whatever you want them to play on, or you could get a couple different instruments. I actually pitched this section up for the resonator bells because they're an octave higher than the piano part, but I pitched this for the boom whackers. But honestly, you could play it with either one. And I just did the same idea with the quarter and the rest and looking at the melody below to take my notes from. Okay, so what you need to do when you're making those melody descants or ostinato patterns, however you want to do it, is you're going to look at the melody itself and see what you could play out of that would be easy for your students. Now here's something right here. If it was a decent enough tempo, you could have the students do this stepwise motion on the exact melody part there, but this might be a little bit more complicated for them. It just depends on what you're playing. If you wanted to throw a recorder on here, the recorder could play this part, C, A, G, B, D, all of that. The recorder could play this part, the B section, pretty easily if your students know all of those notes already. If you wanted them to play chords, then you would have to look at what the chord progression was in the actual song in order to have them play chorded accompaniment patterns. Okay, that's all I have for you today. I hope that you learned some tips and tricks on how to create a rhythm or a melody ostinato pattern for your students to play on those classroom instruments. Don't forget to subscribe. Have a wonderful day.